Good afternoon. Welcome back to Passionate World Radio Network. Distinguish yourself from the ordinary. This afternoon on Lillian's Interviews, we are interviewing Jennifer Coken, who's a life coach, a comedian, and she also wrote a book called Embrace the Ridiculousness of Life. So, ridiculously introducing Jen Coken.
Thanks so much, Lillian. Thanks for having me on the show. The book's actually called When I Die, Take My Panties.
Oh, it's another book. Okay, When I Die, Take My... That's even better. Although I have a couple suggestions. Okay, so when you die, take my panties. Now that your panties have been taken, is there any cold air blowing in?
Well, once in a while, it just depends on how short my dress is.
I see. Okay, so what possessed you to have your pants taken in the first place?
Well, it was actually an homage to my mom. She is the one who the book's about my journey with her passing away from ovarian cancer in 2011. Yeah, with some other, tough stuff in my life going on, and it's about how I was able to deal with all those setbacks and find my sense of humor and keep my sense of humor. And she's a nice Jewish mother, was a nice Jewish mother, and she was like, honey, here's the necklace I want you to have. Here's Grandma's ring. Here's my fur coat. And she opens this drawer, and she says, see all of these? They're expensive. Goodwill won't take them. They shouldn't go to waste. Take my panties.
Yeah, that sounds like the Jewish mom I used to know as well. They're very generous at the end. It's just when they're living, things get a little tight.
Well, she was always a very generous person.
Well, that's good. That's good. So when you found your perspective and you retain your sense of humor, did you also find your inner core that steadied you as well?
Absolutely. I mean, I think my number one tip to people, to my clients, is, life is ridiculous. It's absurd. People always say, well, how come bad things happen to good people and good things happen to bad people? And my answer is good things happen to good people. And bad things happen to bad people. Life's absurd. You have to be able to not take things personally in life. It's not like life is saying, screw you, I'm out to get you, and you shall suffer. No, events happen to all of us, each of us. There's not a person or I know or anybody knows that hasn't had something bad happen. And through those down times, I think you're right that is the time when we find our inner strength, our inner core. If we don't, I think we miss the lesson.
Well, not only that, I think you lose yourself in everything. I find life, I've had some near-death experiences, so it's not, relax, folks, it isn't as bad as you think it is. But more importantly, if you can't laugh at yourself, who are you going to laugh at?
Exactly. And, it's easier to laugh at yourself before other people do.
Well, not only that, when you laugh at yourself, you release this little hormone inside of you that says, there's nothing that can happen to me that I can't get up, brush myself off, get back on my feet, and start doing what I need to get done. I mean, that was my life's biggest lesson after a lot of bad setbacks. And if you think about it, is despite what you think that there's some invisible person saying, I'm cursing you, there really isn't. Or to put it in perspective, the only person that can make bad things happen to you is you.
Absolutely. And 2 points. It's so great what you just said. There's actually neuroscience that points to laughter reducing stress, reducing cancer in cancer patients, uplifting their spirits. And it's not that it directly reduces cancer, but it lifts their spirits up. Their body has a more healthy environment to heal. And you're right. You're the only person that can create your own setbacks. I have a definition of responsibility. People always talk about responsibility like it's a burden. I got to take the blame for that, or you should take the blame, or I'm going to take credit. I talk about responsibility as your ability to respond to any situation. So everything that happens to us, we have a choice about how we're going to respond. Are we going to lay down and suffer? Are we going to blame circumstances and become a victim? Or are we going to ask ourselves a much more empowering question, which is, wonder what this is supposed to be teaching me. What can I learn here? Or what did I step over? Where did I sell out on my own values that I might have created a fertile ground for this, whatever this is, happening to me to happen?
Absolutely. And folks, think of it this way. You learn all these lessons, you turn around and teach people how to overcome, and you can get to say, I made your mistakes for you, so you don't have to reinvent the wheel. However, we both know that you're going to make new mistakes, and I'm counting on you handing those down to the next generation so they don't have to make the same mistakes. They can start making some of their own.
Exactly.
And you take the burden of guilt off of everybody.
Yep, absolutely, absolutely. And if we don't learn from the first time, and I mean, I'm sure this has happened to you too, all of a sudden you're like, wait a minute, I've been down this road before. So clearly, if this is happening to me the second, the third time, it was interesting as I was writing this book, which I started writing right after my mom died in 2012, I was laid off from a job. Said, okay, I'll write the book. I'll write full-time. It's what I've always wanted to do. I was in politics for 30 years, for God's sakes. There's enough fodder for comedy to last a lifetime. But I always wanted I always wanted to be an actor. So I thought, okay, I'll make a go of it writing. Well, I couldn't. I got another job. Guess what? I was laid off. So I got a different job. Guess what? I was laid off the day before the book came out last June. I personally published it. It was picked up by a regular publisher. They're re-releasing it in May. But when that happened, Lillian, I was like, okay, wait a minute. What is this trying to tell me? What this is trying to tell me is it's important to get this message out, to get this book out, and no matter what it takes, it's time to launch your own company. 3 strikes and you're out. 3 jobs that I was laid off of. So I think if we don't learn from the first time, there's a point where God, goddess, whatever you want to call the man, woman upstairs, even if you don't believe in a higher power, there's a point where life will smack you over the head with a 2x4 to get you to listen.
Not only that, if you're like me, you keep on getting thrown out of heaven. Every time I hit the pearly gates, I hear this voice saying, not yet. And I wake up in the hospital bed on my way down to the morgue, and the doctor looks and says, OMG, you're dead. Clinically for 15 minutes. What are you doing back here? Surprise! So I can only tell you that they won't let you get in there until you're supposed to really be dead.
Yep.
Which is a very comforting thought, thinking about that.
Yep.
Or you can say, no, God doesn't like me. He's permanently allergic to me. I don't know. You work it out. I just kind of look at it, well, thanks. I needed the extra time.
Well, I think that's so important, though, what you did, though. You created a positive way, and it wasn't just positive. It wasn't because positive thinking is only as good as your positive. I mean, get on the highway any place in the country, and within a moment someone cuts you off. There goes your positive thinking out the window. It sounds like you've really created an empowering context for your life and for yourself that really makes a difference. My work here isn't done. Where else can I make a difference? And here you are with this radio show with all these great people listening. You know, I mean, that's phenomenal.
Radio station,
sorry.
That's okay, not a problem. But I think that people get, or they believe the propaganda, I think is better, that there are bad things out there, not realizing that the bad things are already inside of them. And should they wish to open up Pandora's box, which is them, they can. But they also must recognize that when they do that, they can't put anything back in. And that this is your opportunity to really shine.
Absolutely. And
you can go around and fence yourself in and be in a... My mother believed all her life she was under a curse. And that was too bad because she had so much to give, but she sincerely believed she's under a curse and somebody was out to get them and the whole family was doomed. And I said, well, maybe you want to live that way, but I'm going to keep test-casing the theory until I prove someone wrong.
Yeah.
And I refuse to believe that somebody, I mean, if I want to look for curses, I'll look for the Greeks. If I want to look for war, I'll look to the Romans. And if I want to have a general good time, I'll look to the Italians. I mean, come on. There's a lot of civilizations that have been in this world longer than we have, and look at all they accomplished. Now, how did they do that? And they had less knowledge than we do today.
Yeah, but I think you're really keyed into something here, which is when bad stuff happens, we do let it start to overtake us. We become overwhelmed. We become stressed out. It becomes a really dark place that sometimes it is difficult for some people to get out of. I can totally relate. My mom passed away in 2011. 11 other people in my life died. Then I moved 2,000 miles away from my support network to take a job that I was laid off of. My marriage had ended and failed. Within a year, because I was committed to growing and evolving, and I had great coaches around me, I went from really, hating my ex-husband to becoming best friends with him and being in the life of him, his new wife, their kids, my stepkids. I went from, crying myself at sleep at night after my mom died to a state of peace and acceptance. And I went from being at the wrong job at the wrong time, wrong 3 jobs really, in the wrong time in the wrong place, to doing what I love with purpose, grace, and ease. And that's exactly what it sounds like you did, and what anyone out there can do.
It's really very easy. And I'll tell you something else, folks, and I know a lot of people are going to get angry when I say this. I think it's wonderful that there's so many people that do so many impossible things to improve themselves. And yes, it is inspiring. But please remember, this is their story, their victory. And while it's fantastic, wonderful, oh my God type thing, the only person who can really inspire you is you.
Yep.
And if you are feeding off of somebody else's energy for their successes, I know you're going to hate this, are you any better than those so-called vampires who feed off of the energy of others?
Yeah, another way to look at it is if you were sitting in front of a fireplace. It's like what you're talking about. It's like sitting in front of a fireplace expecting someone else to light the match.
Yeah.
You've got to light the match.
You got it. You have to initiate it. And does it involve risk? Hell yes.
Oh, yeah.
Life is about, I tell people, well, I'm taking my leap of faith now. And they look at me and they say, well, how can you do it? And I said, that's the one thing about leaps of faith. I do it with my eyes closed, but I always land on my feet. So I must be a cat from a former life. What do you think?
I think so. And I think, too, when you think about it, the times when we feel the most alive, when you feel the sense of accomplishment and peace, is when we have done it ourselves, when we have taken the time to learn, to grow, and overcome. And even if we've failed in what you set out to adventure, you take that leap of faith, and even if you've failed, if you've given it your all, if you've spread your wings, if you've really leaped off that cliff or that, that chasm, and even if you fail, you have given it everything, and you're going to grow through that process.
Absolutely. And when you listen to other people tell you, my mom, my dad, my aunt told me that if you worked very, very, very hard, you'll get your heart's desire, don't believe it. I know from personal experience there are lots of things that I really, really want, but for whatever the reason, and trust me, I can come up with at least $500,000 in 20 seconds. Sometimes it just doesn't happen. But don't look at it as a failure.
Right.
Because when you get your heart's desire, guess what? It doesn't always quite turn out the way you see it.
Well, I think, too, when you fail, a lot of us think somehow that means we are a failure.
Exactly.
It just means you failed. I look to my mom, and when she was diagnosed with ovarian cancer, she was given less than 5 years to live. And she lived 5 years, 1 month, and 8 days.
Yeah.
And she tried everything, and she did that because she wasn't ready to go. That's what she kept saying. In the end, she failed. I, quote-unquote, failed to keep her alive. But we had such a great time during those 5 years. What I learned about her, what we learned about each other, what I learned about ovarian cancer and what it was like to take care of somebody with cancer and how to relate to people. And what I learned about her was priceless.
And I have something to talk to you about that thing, too, as well, after the interview. But I think it's really important, folks, that when you're put into a situation, any situation, instead of seeing the bad, the awful, the shame, the humiliation, just remember this. It doesn't have to turn out that way because you have the choice
and the power
to change it. I've been there. Jen's been there. We can tell you it really, really works. Maybe not to spend this way that it happens to, famous politicians or celebrities or sports figures or Jane Blow down the street, because each one is a personal experience. It's your trip, or as they say in Potter, this is your circus. This is you. This is what you're imagining that death would be like. And since I'm your best friend, I show up naturally to help guide you. But it's you who's doing it. And that's what you have to remember.
And some really easy, easy questions to ask, because what happens when you get into that funk, when you experience that failure, the first question, I think you started off this way, was saying, well, why me? Why are these bad things happening to me? You can ask that question for a moment. You can have it over for a glass of wine, but don't go to sleep with it. Don't go to bed with it, because you'll regret it in the morning. And my recommendation is to ask yourself the question, all right, let me take a step back here. What did I step over that didn't, what are my values that I step over? It's like a dog in the backyard. If your dog is pooping in your backyard and you don't clean up after it, the dog has less and less room to run. So if you're stepping over things, it's like pooping in your own fishbowl. You have less and less room to express yourself. So the more you can look to see where that is and scoop it out and scoop it up, the more expression, the more creativity you have. You could ask yourself the question, all right, what am I supposed to learn here? What could I learn here? And asking those kind of questions are much more powerful than why me, because why me keeps us in a state of victimhood.
Absolutely. And one other small thought here. Please, please, please don't move to a new house, apartment, state, galaxy, because you're going to take that little nagging problem with you. It will not solve. That's why when the people came from the old world and settled in the new world looks just like the old world. Why is that? That's because they didn't solve the problems back in the old world. They took the old world problems with them into the new world, and they're still trying to solve them.
Yeah, absolutely. I say to people, you can move, but guess who you're taking with you? You. You're going with you. You could move because your last 3 marriages failed, but you're still going to be with you. So the person to go to work on is you.
That's it. And you have to, I know it's difficult. I know you don't want to do this. Gosh, I've used all those excuses myself. But the thing of the matter is, the first step is to let a little sunshine into your cave.
Absolutely. And, there's a great exercise I would love to give you, which is, when you're facing a situation or a problem that seems untenable, that seems horrible, write out what's happening on a piece of paper. And then go through and take a highlighter and highlight just the facts. And what I generally find is whatever you've written in that tomb that you've just written, those 5-10 pages, there's maybe 5 facts. There's you, there's the date and time something happened, there's somebody else. And if you can just get that those are facts and everything else is all the stuff, mishugas, the mischief that you're making up around it, that gives you that lightness, that gives you that moment of just being able to step back and, okay, let me breathe for a minute and let me look at this in a new light.
And it works, folks. Is it putting you in a new position? Yes. Is it asking you to actually not lie to yourself? So you have to take off your rose-colored glasses? Absolutely. And if you think looking into a mirror is going to help you, or a cosmetic mirror, magnifying mirror is even better, then look into it. You'll be shocked at what you find.
Yep. Yeah, and that's what I've always said is at the end of the day, only you are looking at you in the mirror. You're going to have to live with yourself. So whatever's going on in your life, whatever choices you've made, how you've chosen to respond to a situation, you've got to live with you. And things will always come our way that challenge us to grow, that challenge us to evolve. That's what we're here for, is to grow and evolve. That's what our soul is here to do.
And if it makes you feel any better, the Mayans believed there are two worlds that coexist, the real world and try it until you get right world. And guess what world we're in? Try it until we get it right world. And then when we finally get what we need, then we're allowed to go into the real world. So just kind of consider this world as a practice world.
It's a great way to look at it. Phenomenal.
Jen, so please tell everybody where they can find you, your book when it's released, upcoming interviews, all kinds of stuff. You're a life coach. Do you take clients? Tell them all those facts.
I do. I take clients. They can find me on jencoken.com, JenCoken.com. I have a great, I take on individual coaching clients, and I do have a great new program I'm just launching, just announced today, called The Spa for Your Soul, How to Do Away with Your Mid-Winter Blues. We'll be doing an anxiety colonic and a mood massage, a little self-talk sauna, and a stress detox over 4 weeks, which should be a lot of fun. And they can find my book on any of the big booksellers' websites, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, et cetera, and they can pre-order it. It'll be released May 2nd.
Okay, so please tell everybody the name of that book.
And the book is When I Die, Take My Panties, Turning Your Darkest Moments into Your Greatest Gift.
Terrific. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, you heard it here first. You can hear this stream all over again at twitter.com/_@Caldwell, CAULDWELL, youtube.com/PWR Network LLC, facebook.com/PWR Network LLC, at the website PassionateWorldRadioNetwork.com. And if you want to get your laughs, I write a blog, and I write anything from, the sublime to the ridiculous. The blog upcoming is My Body is Against Me. What am I going to do? And other assorted tales. And also at googleplus.com/PWR Network LLC. And before you go away and stray, Bruno Lessing had this to say: love really has nothing to do with wisdom or experience or logic. It is the prevailing breeze in the land of youth. Thank you all very much for listening. I hope you enjoyed the interview with Jen. And remember, please keep listening.